All right,
Hey,
we're live.
everybody. I'm Ethan Zerka, and I'm here with Sakib, my business partner and good friend. And we have a great guest back with us today. It's going to be Henry from Epic. Henry, this is your second time on our podcast, and so I'm really excited to have you again. I know there's a lot of really cool things that you're working on, and we're excited to share it with our audience.
Well, it's great to be back. Thanks for having me on again.
Definitely. And the salute was for Bitcoin being over 10,000. So
yeah, so we always salute when Bitcoin is over 10,000. When it's over 20,000, I'm going to have to figure something else out. Maybe we'll stand up or something. So yeah, Henry, tell us what's going on in your world. I'm excited to just go ahead and get to it.
Well, there's lots going on. We've got some new products in development. The Psi miner is finally in production. I feel like we're back in the dark ages. We have to communicate with China to get the product up and running. Mm-hmm. And communications is a major bottleneck, especially when it comes to hardware. We get a board, they run a signal. They say, I can't, this looks funny. And we say, send it to us or should do this. And then they kind of respond 50 emails changes later. They end up sending a board back to us and say, we can't figure it out. So the pandemic really had a lot of issues in terms of hardware bring up. Normally we'd be there on site and we could just be on the same bench, put the oscilloscope on, measure the signal and say, I can do this. But every change takes close to a week because they send the board back, we debug it, send the board back to them. And, that's why I have to apologize to our customers for being late, but we're trying really hard. We're up every night trying to figure it out.
So it's because of the pandemic. I guess it's restricting travel, and I can totally understand your frustration. I still get calls to this day. A lot of people have computer problems, and I used to have a computer repair business, and they want me to fix their computer over the phone. But I mean, just it can't be said enough about how being in person and interacting with the electronics in person can give you so much more information than just somebody observing and saying, well, this is what I'm seeing it doing. Maybe they're not seeing something that you would see if you were there firsthand and be able to really diagnose what the issue is and move forward with it. So I totally understand your frustration.
Yeah, it's interaction, right? So there's a lot of talk about work at home. We went through that early on when the pandemic first hit and we're working on our next generation chip, right? We could get most of the work done, but you still can't get everything done until you're together. It's the group think and the real-time interaction that's missing. So, from a hardware standpoint, it definitely we need to be together and we need to be interacting real time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so is it also adding more expense, I guess, because of the separation, or is everybody kind of understanding and saying, look, we're not going to bill you for this extra time because, it's the pandemic and it's just how things are?
No, business is business. We're being billed, right? And Federal Express, go buy some Federal Express stock. We're spending so much.
Yeah. All right. I'll write that down here. Let me.
Yeah, especially with flights, I think being down. It's I've been sending DHL packages back and forth, and same thing. I think FedEx, DHL, they're getting a lot of business right now because of COVID.
Yep.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. When I sent some things to you, Sakib, I sent them via DHL. And I actually, at the same time, I sent two packages at the same time, one to India, one to Bangladesh. And which one won? Did we make a decision? Did Bangladesh beat India? It was kind of a tie, but it basically took like 3 weeks for everything to get. It arrived there in 2 days, but then 3 weeks after that, just for clearance customs, or whatever the shenanigans, customs or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we definitely know your shipping woes, Henry. So Henry, tell us about what else you've got going on with your operation. And just for the audience, those who don't know, Henry, if you've ever played a video game, literally, if you've ever played a video game, I guarantee you are a fan of Henry's work. Henry has worked with pretty much all the major consoles in developing, their processors and their units that make them perform. So, if you've never heard of Henry and you're like, who is this guy? Now you know he's the guy that's responsible for your video games working.
Yeah,
Exactly.
our team. So Earl Mai, our CTO, helped build 6 generations of game consoles. So his last 2 products before he left AMD were for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Next, which are both shipping at the end of this year.
Yes,
Wow.
yes, and there's a lot of people who are very excited about that.
Yeah, so am I. I can't even get one in line, like
right.
Everybody else.
Can't you get an engineering sample or anything? Do you have any ins for that?
I have a FPGA working in one of the consoles, but we had to leave that, or had to leave that behind. So we saw that before he left.
Wow, that is so cool.
The interesting thing is, you started working with, I think it was the 9500 Pros, right? The ATI.
Yeah, 70, actually the 8500s.
The 8500s.
Wow.
Okay, yeah. So we did. Even before that, we helped develop DirectX with Microsoft. So all the side scrollers, when they first came out, they were all based on graphic accelerators.
Excellent.
So yeah, like I said, you guys have been a fan of Henry's for a very long time. You just didn't know the name of the person that, all these luxuries and these things that you enjoy in modern day technologies today. Henry was one of the founding fathers of that, and I just can't give him enough respect and credit for that. But
the fact that he's in the blockchain industry.
Yeah, and he's now come into the mining world. He's decided to to take off the shirt and tie in corporate and enterprise console development, and he's decided to go into the mining development world and into blockchain industries. What was the deciding factor for that, Henry?
Well, it's just so there's a couple things, right? But in most industries today in semiconductors, it's a closed ecosystem, right? You kind of know you're boxed in the space and you can only provide so much innovation. We looked at blockchain and we said that the market is wide open for innovation because at the end of the day, what you're just trying to produce is the best hash power and the best efficiency. And everything underneath that, the architecture, the system, the way it's been designed and the way we ship it is all open for innovation. So this is similar to the talk I had at Mining Disrupt, which is we believe that mining is going to undergo some major innovations. We believe that blockchain will become need to be more efficient. We'll see different form factors such as blade servers. You'll see immersion come on. I've got a cool immersion demo I can show you in a sec. And we've got a whole bunch of other things. Voltage innovation, form factor, the type of ASIC, and the type of processing. So all that is going to be like the PC days that we used to call the Wild Wild West. Now today's technology in PC is really boring because it's all the same stuff over and over again. Yeah,
it's all kind of been figured out. And so you wanted to go from an industry or a situation where it's just wash, rinse, repeat, and go into a situation where you saw the original pioneers, they were onto something, but your years of expertise could just elevate it to another level, a next level in terms of innovation. And that totally makes sense. So what are your thoughts about the current manufacturers? And we won't name any names, but just speak in general terms. Give me an example of a mistake that they clearly made, or something that they overlooked.
Well, let's look at mining in general, right? So mining is what we would consider a mission critical application. You need to be up 24/7 in order for, to be viable as a commercial miner, right? Your product is reliable. So fundamentally, we don't, the industry doesn't go through that reliability testing or kind of,
quality assurance.
Yeah. There's no quality.
We've been ingrained by when we're dealing with Apple and Dell and HP and others is there's a flaw we end up paying for, right? We have to be down at their sites. We have to have them qualify the products. We look at the stats of the products and say, total cost of ownership is this, reliability is this, heat failures, that type of thing. So none of that is transparent in the business today. And, we don't have a roadmap in the business to say, here's how people work together in high density form factors. right? We've got these kind of shoe boxes that don't fit very well. We know the world is going to blades. You look at PC server, they've all gone to blades, right? So why hasn't the mining business gone that way? So there's a whole bunch of parallel industry learnings we can apply to mining.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And again, now that I'm thinking about it, like, yeah, why haven't they gone to blades? Why haven't they try to follow some of these other industry standards? And especially I've noticed with power supplies, there's no standardization.
Right.
So the S9s had C13 connectors, the S17s and the S19s, they have two C13 connectors, but it's really two power supplies integrated, and they're smartly balanced between each other. Then other manufacturers just went straight to a C19, and it's just like, especially in these times where it's tough to get new inventory from the manufacturers because of the drama and the things that's going on, people are considering changing out. But if they had a previous infrastructure, let's say, that was ready for S9s, that was able to power S9s, they may have to completely overhaul and redesign their power, distribution infrastructure just to handle, let's say, what's miners, and so having this non-standardization is costing people hundreds of thousands of dollars in renovating these things. And so I'm really glad that you're kind of bringing a standard, or you're bringing an industry standard, or at least that's one of your goals. I think that's fantastic.
Right, and it gives the power back to the customer too, right? You can provide the infrastructure to say, here's what I need and here's what fits into my racking. I've seen far too many miners say, oh, I've got all these S19s coming in, I got to redo all my racks and so on and so forth.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the market it's going to be it's going to choose the most efficient method in the long run. So eventually, I think it's going to be going in that direction, anyways.
Well, I don't think it's so much, because here's the thing: you can promise efficiency, but what if you don't take care of your customers? What if you don't have product availability? So it's one thing to make a promise, but that promise is only as solid as what it's backed by. And if it's not backed by a quality system that's there for the customer, that wants to take care of the customer and do right by the customer, it doesn't matter what you promise, because that promise is just emptiness. It's just hot air. And again, that's why I have so much respect for you, Henry. Henry, why don't you show our viewers just how nitty gritty you get into testing, into testing your products? Because I agree with you. I mean, this is something that needs to be brought into the industry. And I think the more we can make our audience aware of it and kind of, make it part of their focus, the more value, you'll bring into the industry.
Right. So let me show you a couple of things. Right. So this is a single piece heat sink. Right.
Wow.
This is our hash board. And the standard industry practice today would be to put an individual heat sink on, and we all know what happens with individual heat sinks, right?
They get loose, and then they go pink.
You see, the S17s all fall apart. 30% of them are dead because of heat sink problems. Well, you'd think it'd be an easy thing to do, but the reason people don't do it is you got to worry about contact pressure, right? So, we're trying all these different types of thermal tape. We've got different torque specs. We're moving the screw holes around in order to make sure we make proper contact.
We get a good, even, and also the thickness of the heat sink itself, right? You don't want any bending or twisting or anything, so it has to be very solid.
Yeah. So, it's the heat conductivity, It costs us a little bit of performance because we don't run 100% full. We don't run as tight a contact as the individual heat sinks, but those are. We think that at the end, reliability matters. I don't know if you can even see in here. We've got spacers in here on the washers. You can see a little height here. Here's another example: immersion cooling. Right? People think, wow, you just take something, you dip it.
Yeah, just throw it in the fluid.
Yeah. Here's a prototype board for immersion cooling, right? So we got temperature sensors in the chip, and we've got external sensors, and we're measuring each one. We got tanks outside that we use to, vary the flow to see how things perform over time, and different heat areas, and we're trying all kinds of different thermal, thermal conductivity. You can see we're using different heat sinks here, the thinner ones.
Uh-huh.
The heat sinks here, you can see that,
Wow, those almost look like a comb. Yeah.
Yeah. These are a lot finer, so they allow better flow for fluids. So, all kinds of little things like that. And then, should I show you my next generation board or should we go on to something else?
No, let's see it. I love this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. My next generation board. This is not the SIA board. This is another board. So we have it back in our labs. And you look at this. It looks like a 3-letter word.
Yeah.
GPU.
And it looks like it's using like a heat pipe technology.
Using heat pipe technology. You notice that it's got a PCIe slot on it.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Using heat pipe like a GPU. In this case, we're not going to reinvent the wheel and do our own custom form factors. We're just going to reuse what's available on GPUs.
Okay.
And, this thing will run 300 watts because it's going to plug into a PC slot.
And it's fanless too, right?
It'll be fanned and fanless. So we have an active and a passive version. Right.
Wow. So could you imagine walking into a big farm that's just silent? Like, really?
That would be
well, you still need the fans.
You still need to get rid of the heat somehow from the building, but it wouldn't be nearly as noisy as many of the farms that I've walked into.
Correct.
Especially not like like the stuff from some of the manufacturers out there right now.
Right.
Yeah. And our goal here is to decentralize mining. So we want to bring mining back to the home, right? So for the hobbyist miners and the small miners, support the coin. We realize the shoe boxes aren't the most home-friendly environment. So these are going to be 300 watts. They're going to fit in your PC or an open chassis, and
they'll be able to run off of residential power.
Exactly.
Okay. That's a really big thing.
Excellent.
That's awesome. So tell us about your SIA miner. Tell us about the ST200.
Well, as I said, we're finally in production.
Uh-huh.
Nice.
We didn't have to make the trips back and forth to Asia. It did cost us a month because, we have to be locked up 14 days in quarantine before we can go to the factory. And then we have to be locked up 14 days coming
before
back.
You can go back. Yeah.
Right. So, we've got all these wafers. Basically, we have all the chips packaged. They're waiting in production. We have the boards built. We're doing the final testing and burn-in. Because it's our first batch, we want to try and make sure that they go through more robust testing.
Mm-hmm.
We're basically building them in batches of 25, doing extra burn-in, and then measuring all the signals and whatnot, and then basically piping back and extended testing.
So when can customers expect the delivery of the first let me put it, the first batch of your...
They're leaving the factory. So this is not strictly up to me. So they should be leaving the factory at the end of next week. And then they'll go from Shenzhen to Hong Kong. And then however many days it takes for the freight forwarder to pick them up and ship them.
Okay. All right. So would it be reasonable to say mid-September?
Mid-September should be the date.
Okay.
Right? Depends on flights. We have all the parts. I can show you the bills.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's another thing that's very frustrating in the industry is, we have a very similar situation with another manufacturer, and it's, they've got everything locally, but, it's just going on because of the pandemic, going on through that chain of command or where it has to go from place to place to place to finally get here. Right. That's where we're finding a lot of difficulties and hangups.
Exactly.
Sure, and demand's high because SIA coin price is going to the moon.
I was going to say
yes,
that SIA coin has really done well, really good recently, and I think
how much is it? How much is it up from our last podcast? Can you tell us?
I believe it's 50%.
Yeah, I think we were at 35 last time on our podcast, if I remember correctly. It's at 42 right now.
Oh wow. Yeah. Wow. So that's significantly more earnings per day.
Oh yeah.
And SIA coin or SIA coin, I don't know. It depends on how you want to say it. SIA coin is one of those coins that it has a utility behind it. It has a purpose behind it, beyond just being a coin and being something that you can mine and something of value. And I'm so grateful to you, Henry, for supporting that utility and getting behind that. And like you said, just making mining something that everybody can do, not just, the big money people and, the enterprise level and, industrial scale level of mining that I've been seeing in these, coming up in these past couple of years, but just kind of making it something that everybody can do.
Right.
And in that thread,
recently is the hobbyist miner has been left with less and less options, and now we're basically someone like me, who's basically a hobbyist miner. I would it's very difficult for me to go into any of the big coins, and I have to go for a lot of speculative coins. And so, if you're bringing that back, the hobbyist mining is really going to thank you for that.
Yeah, and I think Scicoins is a really special case because although our miner isn't really designed for the hobbyist, it's got the whole grassroots following, right? The decentralized storage, costs on Sci storage is very inexpensive compared to other mechanisms. I think it's the net cost of storage there is like $1.5 $1.50 per terabyte, right, per month. You compare that to to Google or Dropbox, your order of magnitude's higher than that.
Yes.
Correct.
And then I think it's a coin that's definitely going to grow. That's why we chose to support it.
Yeah.
You look at SciStream, they got the Plex server running. That's going to be the hobbyist self-storage. You won't have to pay the outrageous fees to other people if you can host on it. What they're doing with Skynet in terms of free file storage for decentralization. And so you've got the security, you've got the low cost, and you've got a very scalable infrastructure. My plug for Sci is if you have free storage, sign up for Sci storage. You can basically put your storage on there, learn how it works, and add more hard drives or buy some miners.
Yeah, and the best part is it's on the blockchain, so it's never going to be, it can't be edited, it can't be destroyed, it's always going to be there. So.
It's always secure, right? You've got 6 copies on the blockchain.
Exactly.
And we've kind of had another coin, Orchid, which also has a utility to it. It has a VPN utility to it, and we've seen a huge rise in Orchid recently. And so I expect these coins that have a utility, a purpose beyond just being, a sense of value, I expect them to rise. Henry, obviously, Saya is not the only thing you're working on. Can you give our audience a little, just a little gleam into, the future? What's going on behind the curtain?
Didn't I just show you this?
Yeah.
Right. So I got a PCIe card coming. Watch for this in late this year or early next year. A release of this is not under my control. It's up to the coin. So, expect this to be in consumer pricing levels, and look for you guys at CMT. Will have it available for sale.
Yes, we will.
Preferred partner. What else can I tell you about it? I think you'll make a bunch of money on this initially. We're going to have the same business practices, which is we're going to publish how many we're going to sell, and so you can be guaranteed that you'll recognize what the profit is.
Right.
That is fascinating, and I think that's kind of been the failure in previous ventures. The manufacturers would just churn out as many miners as they possibly could.
Exactly.
Nobody knew. You could look at the overall hash rate and you could kind of guess, but nobody knew exactly how many were coming out, and this would cause a panic. And then people would exit, they would cash out, and then inevitably it would cause a price crash. And then because of the price crash, and then everybody's like, oh, well, this was just this was a shit coin, and this was never, so your strategy behind that is kind of very controlled manufacturer to keep an equilibrium
that's
going.
Yeah.
That's absolutely, I think that's a game changer in itself. That's absolutely amazing.
Well, hopefully other manufacturers stick by that too. So I'm only part of the puzzle. So I'm hoping I'm going to set a good example, and other manufacturers will follow. Right? In mining, we typically see this. We see this marginal revenue equals marginal costs. which is people keep buying, and then basically everyone's driven to unprofitability.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now it hurts putting a cap on sales because obviously if there's excess demand, then we lose profits.
Yeah, Scott and I have a saying though in the industry, and that is a high tide floats all boats. And if you're willing, to make the right sacrifices at the right time, it ultimately strengthens and makes a better environment where everybody can win instead of just greed and a free for all. We have a guest here. What is it? Kay Soze?
Yeah, Kay Soze.
I'm guessing Kaiser Soze. Can you ask if the PCIe card Henry is hinting at is an FPGA or an ASIC? Here's where he's going to get very mysterious.
No, I'm going to be very transparent about this, which is I make money on ASICs, right? Our team designs ASICs. Intel makes money on FPGAs, and Xilinx makes money on FPGAs. So answer number one, you can probably guess, is this is an ASIC.
Okay.
And then answer number two is for me to hit consumer pricing, I can't do a hash core FPGA. FPGAs cost 10, 20, 30 times more than the equivalent ASIC.
Yes, they are definitely more expensive, and it's kind of I've seen it like a hit and miss. I've seen a lot of FPGAs come out, and if you get the right coin at the right time, you can be very profitable with it. But many times by the time they actually receive their board, that window is already gone, and then they kind of struggle to figure out what they can do with it.
Well, FPGAs are priced at a premium because it's a small application, right? So it's designed to be programmable. So it's a stage to get to a point. You remember, if you look back in the older days, it went from CPUs to GPUs to FPGAs and then to ASICs. So it's a transition point. The whole benefit of an FPGA is to give you the transition. It really is not designed for crypto. It's been designed as a programmable part, more for telecommunications or automotive or other type of applications which need that flexibility.
Yeah,
right. That's why ASICs can be more efficient and more powerful than FPGAs.
Correct. And we're running a latest. You look at it, we're running the latest and greatest process. So we're going to run at higher speeds. We don't have all the excess logic that you need for networking or that kind of programmability.
Yeah. So we're just to confirm here. Kay Soze is asking the wattage. The wattage you said is going to be around 300 watts.
That's correct.
Okay. So 300 watts.
Go ahead.
No, I was just confirming 300 watts. Yeah.
Yeah, we're basically going to run it to the max of the system. So, PCIe spec calls for 300.
Awesome. So someone will be able to just plug this into their computer, I guess, if they have a good power supply.
That's correct. You can even do it with a mediocre power supply if you just put one or two in there.
Oh, nice. Wow. That's fantastic. And can you give us an idea, like a timeline? Any kind of?
I believe I said it earlier, late Q4, early Q1.
Okay.
But it's not up to me, right? It's up to the blockchain.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And that's what's really interesting, that you're actually taking that feedback from the blockchain. I know that there's been a lot of blockchains that have that don't support ASICs, and it's good that you're working with them to kind of release this, to make it more decentralized.
Yeah. Well, the part is still prototype, so we're just getting the board. We're getting the board thermals and everything running. We're waiting for the ASIC to come back. So that's the
right.
Okay.
Where do you see things a year from now? Can you give us any predictions?
I think that you'll continue to see more contraction in the mining business. There's a lot of people going for 5 nanometer, and what will happen is that it's going to draw the cash reserves of a lot of companies. Right. If you look at 7 nanometers as an example, people were burning close to $20 million on one bring up, and we saw Bitmain go through 3 versions of it. 15 will cost even more. And, it's you're going to be people are going to be too close to the cutting edge which is the early stage of technology. The whole cell libraries and characteristics of the ASIC aren't fully determined, which is why the risk is always in the beginning of the process. Right? But in order to stay in the lead, you have to do that for the kind of very hashing intensive products like the Bitcoin products. I said
you don't see that as a possibility for a collapse, very similar to what's happening here, is where it's like Icarus, it flew too high to the sun, and now with some turmoil, a pandemic and things like that, it's almost like a death blow to some of these manufacturers, because they've spent all this money into the cutting bleeding edge. They haven't quite perfected it. They haven't gotten it perfected. And so now they're kind of delivering B grade, C grade, D grade products and defective products. They're losing consumer confidence in droves.
Right.
And it's kind of creating this snowball effect where you have a tremendous opportunity to come in and fill a void, or to begin to kind of rebuild from the ashes of these collapses or these failures.
That's correct. Now the 5 nanometer cause people to run out of cash, right? If you have to make 3 spins at call each spin $30 million, $25-30 million. That's there's a lot of money to be thrown away.
Oh, absolutely. It's a lot of money to be throwing away. And especially when you've delivered a batch of products that has lost consumer confidence. And on top of that, nobody knows when you'll be able to deliver your next batch of promised products. And you're already months late and apologizing to customers. So, I think it's a tremendous opportunity for manufacturers. For those, I know, Henry, you're probably one of the most prominent people in the electronics manufacturing industry. But for those of you out there who are in the electronics manufacturing industry and, are tired of what Henry said, just doing the wash, rinse, and repeat, everything's figured out. And now it's just, follow, the instructions to get to the end of the chip design. If you want to do something new, reach out to Henry, contact Henry. If you're an engineer, if you're a qualified engineer, reach out to Henry and see if he can, get you into a new field, a new industry where you can really go and shake things up. You can change things.
Sure. Exactly.
Yeah. And, Henry, I just wanted to thank you again for being on our podcast and being our podcast guest. You're always such a wealth of knowledge, and it's so rare in our industry for us as the consumers to actually get to meet and like even shake hands. And one day we will meet face to face, and I'll shake your hand when the whole pandemic's gone. Right? Yeah, we'll do. With somebody who's actually, building things that we're utilizing to, provide a future for ourselves, to, give us a generational wealth. And that's amazing. I can't think of any other industry where you can actually do something like that.
No, and I would pick blockchain as an industry, right? There's so much innovation available. And, this isn't the end of crypto, isn't the end of the road for us here. Our goal at the end of the day is to put out a BPU, a blockchain processing unit, which will, power all the servers and back end that you see today. You're running your transactions that run Visa, right? And you got so many people at touch points at the end of the day trying to duplicate trying to build trust in the system that isn't trusted. We're really excited about blockchain because it is truly trusted and it will be very efficient. So the goal here is to go from today's maybe 10 to 100 transactions per second on Bitcoin and some of the other blockchains to 50, 60,000 transactions per second.
Yeah, right. Like Visa can do like 30,000 a second.
Right.
And much more than that. I mean, I'm pretty sure that we'll be at a point where Visa's transaction speed won't be anything compared to what we can in the blockchain.
Yeah.
So now, you want to buy your Ferrari when you guys all have money in mining. You want to go buy that Ferrari, you can buy it on your credit card.
Right. Now, you mentioned the blockchain processing unit in our previous podcast. Can you give us any updates on that? How far along is it? Do you have any working prototypes? Or
no, this is going to be 2023 and beyond.
Okay.
So what you see today is that everything we're building kind of all fits together like a Lego block, right? So I got my NOC, my network on chip that we plug cords into. So that's going to go into our blockchain. We've got some cool memory technologies that we patented and are starting to develop. You might have heard about a Grin product. We're running at 60 terabytes per second, which is 100 times faster than what GPUs are running. So there's all kinds of little pieces that we're bolting together.
That is really awesome.
And we're using crypto as the way to prove the technology in little blocks rather than to wait until the end of the day where you got to build this massive chip with all this functionality that isn't proven. So that's the development strategy.
That makes a lot of sense. That's really cool. All right.
And that's what I really like about, Henry, what you're bringing to the table is you have, especially with the miners that you're coming out, you're really providing value to the people that are buying it because you have a set number of how many that you're going to manufacture. And that really brings value to the person that's buying that equipment, So.
Yeah, and hopefully that and, the increase in hash rate and efficiency is important too. I think every coin that we choose has some strong value attached to it, and that's what we're trying to do. We're doing the crawl, walk, run, right? So the next product's a bigger proof of work product. It'll be a top 10 in terms of the reward. So
I see. Yeah, baby steps.
I'm so excited. I can't wait. Well, thank you again, Henry, for being on our show. And again, out to our guests, Henry has some new products that he's going to be releasing to the market. If you're interested in those products, please reach out to Saqib, Scott, or myself and ask us about it. We'll be happy to, again, within the rules and within the guidelines, get you guys the gear that you want from Henry.
Yeah, and you're in your game, remember that.
Right, I am. So yeah, no worries about any secret slipping from my lips. All right, thanks a lot, guys.
It's a pleasure to be here. Everyone have a great day.
Yeah.
All right, take care, guys.